great. All right, we got a couple more minutes. We've got some more folks rolling in. So we'll just give it another minute or two before we go ahead and introduce Dallas and get started. So thanks for joining us, guys. We really appreciate you spending your rainy afternoon with us. Hey, Sarah, can you find the link for the next vets subcommittee meeting so that we can stick it in the chat at the end of the presentation?
I sure will.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We seem to be leveling off with folks trickling in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon for those of you folks who don't know me. My name is Stephanie Evans Kingsley. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board. Every first Wednesday of the month, we host our Partner Spotlight and lift up the good work that the partners on the KWIB are doing out in the Commonwealth, and really just trying to connect all of the pieces across the education and workforce ecosystem. We like to think of ourselves at the KWIB as connectors, and really just appreciate the depth and breadth of the work of our membership out in the streets. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Mr. Dallas Kratzer, who is, I'm always forget your official position, but with the Commission on Military Affairs, he is our newly appointed chair for the Veterans Vats Committee. That they made up a fun acronym that they all capitalized, and I forget every time, so I will let Dallas go into that a little bit.
Sure.
But we have pulled Dallas back into the KWIB's web to lead these efforts with our friend Jason over at the CDO office, who also runs the state vets work here at the cabinet. So we are very excited about a lot of the projects that they have ongoing, and are really going to be putting some good brains behind some collaboration work in the space to help veterans and their families and their workforce and education needs. So Dallas, without further ado, I will turn the mic over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to come and share with you all today a little bit about the subcommittee. We are the Veterans and Transitioning Service Members subcommittee. So that's, being a military guy, we have to have an acronym, and that's the best, most logical one that we could come up with. There were some others, but this one works best. And what we are trying to do with the subcommittee is to help our state agencies, employers in the Commonwealth, and other organizations to learn more about how they can employ veterans, and more importantly, transitioning service members in their ecosystem. It's a unique effort in the fact that transitioning service members tend to be overlooked quite a bit. So I want to share with you a program called SkillBridge, or CSP. It could be either one of the two. I'm bringing up my slides now. And this particular program allows us to do a very unique thing with our service members that I want to share with you who are transitioning back to Kentucky. We will eventually move the VATS program to include military spouses, but right now we're just getting the groundwork laid. As far as who I am otherwise in life, I work for Brigadier General retired Steve Bullard at the Kentucky Commission on Military Affairs. We have a cybersecurity grant going on right now, and part of that grant allows me to get involved in workforce initiative. So it's a great work. We are trying to help veterans, military spouses, and transitioning service members to either reskill or upskill into cybersecurity opportunities. But that's not what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about SkillBridge. And just a quick poll, if you can do either a raise of your hands or anything where you can let us know, do you know about SkillBridge? You can even do a nod because I'm looking at my screen and okay, excellent. I see a couple of folks do. Great. Excellent. All right. Well, hopefully this will give you a little bit more background and you'll be able to see how maybe we can integrate this into your workplace. So SkillBridge is a DoD program. The Army has their version also. But the focus that we're going to look at is capitalizing on those service members who are coming out of their term of service. And every year, there are about 200,000 service members that leave the military. They've either retired and they're coming back home. They've been in for a short term of service, 4, 6, or 8 years, and they've decided the military is not where they want to stay, the full-time service. So they jump back out and they return to their home states, or they return to where there's a great opportunity for them. And that's where we want to capitalize on both of those too. They have great skills. They've had some wonderful training while they're in the military. I do a lot of work with the American Council on Education, and we look at their training and their workplace learning to determine if there's college credit there. So many of them have at least a degree. Many have an advanced master's or even a doctoral level degree. But all of them have a set of soft skills of interpersonal communication and relationship building, team building, change management, because of the nature of their business. And I am a veteran. I spent 35 years in the Air Force. It was a great adventure. I loved it. And now I get the opportunity to return back to veterans and service members by helping through programs like this. Interestingly, out of that 200,000 service members that leave the military, between 3,000 and 4,000 return to Kentucky. And that's great. The challenge is many of them are trying to find work. They want to do something. Those that have had that short term of service are looking for jobs to continue on. They take what they've learned in the military, they incorporate that into their skill set and step out smartly. Some return and go to school, go to college because they have their GI Bill. And then there are those that are retiring, like myself. Some of us want to continue to do other things. So what can we do as a state to better engage them in employment? Well, this is where the DoD SkillBridge program comes in. And that's what I want to share with you today. How do we reconnect those service members to our communities to gainfully employ them and capitalize on their skills? The SkillBridge program is a DoD program which will help to acclimate our service members back to the civilian business community. And they can incorporate their job skills, or they can take on new job skills by doing an internship. And with that internship, it can be up to 6 months in their last year of active duty service. So the interesting thing about SkillBridge is it will allow them to come and work in your business, learning what you do with the potential of employment in the future. The Army has its own version, if you will, of SkillBridge. SkillBridge is a DoD-wide, but the Army has a little bit more active side on the program. They put a lot more people into managing the SkillBridge program and their employment opportunities. Their program is called CSP, or Career Skills Program. So it's kind of a spinoff or a version of that. Now, the reason is, believe it or not, the Army had a lot of foresight to develop a more robust program because they see the value of it. The other branches, they're doing a great job, but each service member has to do their own thing. The Army, they want to engage employers. They want to help our service members to move out into these positions. So they've put a pretty hefty staff in there to help manage this program and make it work. They also want to set the employer up for a good event, and they want to set up the service member for a good event. And the reason for this is the Army recognized that when service members leave the military, they're eligible for unemployment insurance, which is an interesting concept. A lot of folks don't realize that. And if they can get their service members employed quicker, they will save a lot of taxpayer dollars in unemployment insurance. So they are very proactive. We are having some challenges with some commanders who don't get it, but the majority, probably 90% of the commanders I work with, they understand that they need to help their service members who are leaving the military to find employment. So that's a little bit about SkillBridge, each version of it. For the service member, the benefit to this program is it helps them to acclimate to that civilian sector job. The military is very different. The mission set is very different. They have a lot of opportunity to go many places and do amazing things. But when you come back to the civilian sector, the military folks like to say it's going native. You have to demilitarize, if you will, and become more civilian again. And in going native, it's learning what the culture and environment of that workplace is. Within the military, there's a lot of camaraderie. There's a culture of banding together as a family, not only for the service member, but for their spouses, for their kids. And as they move back into the civilian sector, it changes things. It's a little bit different. Now, there are organizations out there that have a military culture to them. For example, UPS or Humana, they hire a lot of military, so there's a similar culture. And that's great, but not every place is like that, nor should they be, because the military environment is very unique, and having that type of culture is hard to grow because of the connectedness and the familiar relationships that go on there. This program, SkillBridge, will allow that transitioning service member up to 6 months before they leave the military to understand that new workplace that they may be going to. It will also help them to see the career opportunities. What are the things that are out there that they can get involved with? Where can they take their military workplace learning and apply those skills to that work area? And we're really looking at the soft skills, how to work in small teams, how to lead a project. Project management is a significant job in the military. A lot of folks don't think of it that way, but it's all about planning. And then it's also about training and how to engage a workforce to achieve certain goals and results. The other great benefit that service members get from this is they get to showcase those skills that they've learned while they were in the service and help the employers to understand the difference. And, as I talk to employers out there that have a lot of veterans, they're always excited to hire more veterans because they like what they bring. They come to work on time. They know how to wear a uniform or dress appropriately. They want to engage. You give them a target of opportunity, if you will. They will plan it out and work right through it. So it gives them a chance to showcase that to an employer. Additionally, it helps them to have employment opportunities when they leave the military. This is the most important aspect of this program. It is designed to drive them to career opportunities or employment opportunities immediately upon leaving the service. All of us want that. No matter whether you're civilian or military, when you leave one job, you want to know where you're going for the next one. The uniqueness of it is that military folks are typically displaced workers, which makes it more difficult to find that job back home while you're still doing your military duty. This is where the DoD has set up this program called SkillBridge. For the employers, similar opportunities here. Most importantly, they're getting a chance to see what our service members bring to the workforce, and they get to develop a plan on how they might integrate them into the workforce. It helps for them to see the value of hiring these dependable workers, these folks. Now, one thing I would like to say as I talk through this, please understand the military is a microcosm of society, if you will. What we have in the civilian sector, we have in the military sector. We tend to be on the higher end of dependable, reliable, solid employees, all right? Because our system has a way of screening out the less desirable employees. And we want to keep those and retain those highly skilled individuals, but we know they'll go away eventually. So the military prepares them for that. The other benefit to the SkillBridge program is that if you will sponsor a military member through SkillBridge, you don't have to hire them. There's no commitment to hire. There's a commitment to the opportunity to be hired. Again, talking with our employers, those that have done SkillBridge, about 80% of them end up hiring the service member because they understand the value of this individual. They get a chance to see what kind of employee they would be like, and they are the people that they're looking for in employment. So how do we do all this? Where does this all come together? Well, SkillBridge is designed that if you are interested in doing this, you need to come up with a plan on what you would share during this internship. So it's an internship, not an apprenticeship. Internship is just like what we would see in a college setting with a co-op, where the service member would still be on active duty, still drawing their military paycheck, still getting their military health benefits and such, but they would work in your environment. They would be part of your staff of employees. The challenge is you need to have a plan on how you're going to expose them to different elements of your organization. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and give you some examples. Again, this is about the member having the high probability or likelihood of employment. Okay, so we want to make sure that we put them in areas where they might be able to continue their employment there. An example of this is we're working with 3 different fire departments right now across the Commonwealth to hire service members that are interested in being EMTs. They can be an EMT in the military, or a combat medic, or a Navy corpsman, or a med tech in the Air Force, any of those kinds of skills. Or they could be a service member who says, you know, I'd like to be an EMT. And each one of these fire departments have a different way to approach the training. The Hopkinsville Fire Department is interested in folks who already have their EMT license, but need to get that ride along to understand how to be an EMT in the civilian community as opposed to a combat medic in a deployment somewhere around the world. They are looking at bringing folks in to give them that ride along, that experience to potentially work as an EMT somewhere else. So there's a high probability of employment, but not necessarily with that particular fire department. We have another fire department here in Frankfort. Frankfort Fire Department is looking at bringing in folks who have no background, and they can train them to be a firefighter and to be an EMT. They're looking for folks who will commit to a 3-year tour with them to be a firefighter EMT. And then after that point, they can move on if they would like, or they can stay right here in Frankfort. Covington has a similar program, but theirs is reversed. They're looking for EMTs, those that they can train to be EMTs. And if they want to be a firefighter, that's bonus. All right. So that's an example of how you might look at employing them with a high probability of a job. The service members, while they're doing this SkillBridge, as I mentioned, they're already on their military paycheck and healthcare. So the place that they're doing their internship cannot pay them. That is the rule. You cannot pay them. So you have to keep that in mind. And with that, there's also a requirement that they only work 40 hours a week. Now, in some situations, they're going to need to occasionally go back to their military organization and do some out processing and such to complete their military service. But the idea here is that they're going to work alongside your folks. They're going to shadow your folks to see what it would be like to be on that job. That's why with the fire departments, we want them to do those ride-alongs. Now, they're not EMTs necessarily at that point, so they may be limited in scope, limited in liability, but they're getting exposed to those aspects. Another organization that's done a great job with using SkillBridge is LG&E. LG&E has brought on several folks and in logistical areas to help manage projects and such like that. So they've given them the opportunity to work alongside project managers to do different types of skills and learn the organization and their capabilities. During that internship, they still have their full-time military benefits. Now, one of the questions that a lot of employers will ask is, what if something happens and they get called back? Yes, that is something that could happen. And I used to say that there's a low probability and it would have to be a pretty significant event. And then Ukraine happened, okay? And a lot of our military folks are on standby. That just means they need to be ready to go in the event of. Will something happen? It will be a long and drawn out process if something were to happen and they were to be called back to their military service. That's just part of the nature of the beast, and we have to work with that. And the employer, by not making them a full up employee, is prepared for that transition if it were to happen. And it's great learning, and there's no outlay of cost from the employer. The other aspect to this is each branch of service has their own way of doing the process and entering this agreement. But one thing that is consistent throughout is SkillBridge asks that the employer do a memorandum of agreement between the employer and the Department of Defense saying, yes, we will do this internship. Here is the training plan that we have to give your service member exposure to these different areas. Yes, we know we cannot pay them. And yes, there is a probability of employment. So in doing that, it makes sure that everybody's on board with everything. Now, if you want to become a partner, it's a very simple process. Just go to the SkillBridge website. You'll see that they have an industry partners page. This is what you would see at the banner there at the top, and you can sign up, start the application process and say, hey, yes, I'm interested in doing this. We want to be a resource to those transitioning service members. Here is the gain for us here in Kentucky. Right now, we have 3,000 to 4,000 service members come back every year. And a lot of those are from Fort Campbell. Others are folks who are Kentuckians who just want to come back. We can create the opportunity for our service members to have guaranteed jobs when they come back to Kentucky through SkillBridge. We can also increase the number of people that we attract to Kentucky. For example, there is this state south of us, Tennessee, who works pretty significantly with that little Army base down there, Fort Campbell, and they have 5,000 service members returning to their community or staying in their community every year. More of them go to Kentucky or to Tennessee than come to Kentucky. We can attract those people to Kentucky by having employers ready to engage them in employment. And one of the missions of the Kentucky Commission on Military Affairs is we want Kentucky to not only be a military-friendly state, but we want to be a military-ready state by having jobs available. And then we want to move to the next level of military engaged, saying, not only do we have jobs available and we've set up a program to help you learn about this job, but now we want to invite you to come in. We want to go out and find you and say, here's something that you may not have thought of. And in our EMT project and with our police project that we're doing, we're finding that there are service members who are more than happy to stay in Kentucky because we've got a great way of life. We've got a great economy. We have fantastic living standards. The challenge is finding employment. And once they find it, they're willing to stay here. So we have more people staying in Kentucky. Now, I talk really fast, and I see Stephanie looks like she wants to ask a question. So
we had a question in the chat, and Brian Henson just was curious as to how this program interacts with the transition programs that the military currently has. Example given was the Navy TAPS program.
Perfect lead into the next slide. Okay, I think it's the next slide. Let me check here. So one thing I do ask is if you decide to become a member of the SkillBridge program, keep me in the loop, add me to your list of folks, because I have a relationship with the folks at DoD SkillBridge that I can pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, we're trying to get this set up, or we're having a challenge. All right. And I can be your advocate for that. Now, back to the question at hand. How do the service members find out about that? Through their transition assistance program. This is married right up. It's a DoD, Department of Labor, DOL program that allows service members in their last 12 months of active duty to start that transition out. So everyone that goes through TAP, Transition Assistance Program, will be introduced to SkillBridge, and they're told to go to SkillBridge and to see if there's some kind of employment. And as you look there on the right hand of your screen, this is a screenshot from the SkillBridge website. You can see the Frankfort Police Department on there, Fruit of the Loom, Hopkinsville and Humana, these folks have all signed up, identified their point of contact, who to talk to, their website on Connected to Veterans to help service members to find those jobs. They can use the keyword search on any career field, logistics, police, whatever the case may be, locations such as Kentucky, or you could even get more granular than that into a local region. So it just helps to flesh that out. But they're exposed to this. And then the service member is also encouraged to set up a LinkedIn profile so that the employer will have a chance to see what they look like through their LinkedIn profile if they make an application or they send an email there. They can also put their resume on there. Just different opportunities. So this is how the service member finds out about it, that transition assistance program. Probably the most valuable way that they find out is word of mouth. Once one person finds a great way to do business, they share it with their friends who share it with their friends and so on and so forth. And off it goes. And they can engage directly with you. You would be on this website. And the really nice thing is once you set up one internship, you can, one SkillBridge internship, you can use that multiple times. You don't have to reset it up every time. For example, I'm talking with the city of Covington and their human resources folks about setting up a SkillBridge opportunity for the city of Covington that may include IT professionals, auto mechanics, and so forth. So they have one plan on what they're going to share, but they use it for multiple different types of organizations. The one challenge we're having, we don't have a lot of truly civilian businesses or employers that are in the process right now. Anyone can do a SkillBridge internship, even a mom and pop organization, a small company, they can say, hey, we have this opportunity. We'd love to do this. One area that we're working on right now, the K-Card agricultural team, they're down in Elizabethtown area. They're having folks come in and do internships in the area of farming to see what it would be like to be a farmer in Kentucky. You know, who would have thought you could do an internship, 6 months of working in a farm environment to see if this is something that you want to do. So lots of different opportunities. And they can reach right out to you, find out what you're doing, and then decide if this is the path that they want to walk. The great thing about SkillBridge is the employer is in total control. If the person doesn't look like they're going to be a good fit for you, you can say, hey, great talking with you, but I don't think this is where you want to be. Let's, you might want to check something else out and see it. It gives the service member the opportunity to only engage in the areas that they want to be. Because here's one of the challenges. Our service members are so inundated in that last 12 months of people wanting to help them. And there are some wonderful programs out there, but it's a fire hose treatment. And there's just, sometimes they don't know which way to go. You just hear too much information, it's challenging. With us developing more SkillBridge opportunities, they can hone it down to what they want to do. For example, here in Kentucky, the SkillBridge opportunity that we've created is called M2LE, Military to Law Enforcement. And in Kentucky, if you want to be a sworn police officer, you have to go to the academy or have gone to an academy that we have reciprocity with. Well, with SkillBridge, we've set it up that our service members who want to be in police work can now go to that police academy while they're still on active duty if they've been selected for hire at a police department. We have our first candidate graduating this month from the Frankfort, for the Frankfort Police Department, and they will be a sworn officer and be able to go on the job as soon as he comes off of active duty, which will be around the 20th of April of this month. So fully engaged, it's a great opportunity, and he was military police in the service, so it's a great continuation of what he's done. Let's see here. So that covers a bunch of turf. Questions, thoughts, or concerns?
Dallas, I know I've heard this presentation a couple of times, so sorry for this, but I just want to make sure that folks understand that the challenges involved in the negotiation of the memorandum of agreement and understanding between the employer and DoD, what are some struggles or challenges in that space to get folks released into the private sector?
Great question, because this is why I want to be involved. This is why I want to help. There's a language barrier between the two communities, civilian sector and the DoD. They each have their own ways of communicating. And then we have to communicate with the service members' leadership at their organization. So there will be times where when we're talking with a service member, they say that their leadership is bought in, but they haven't really talked much with the leadership. So the employer does not have to work real closely with the leadership, but they will have some discussions to make sure everybody's heading in the same direction. Communication is always our biggest barrier, and stay connected and talk. This is why having an advocate, I'm kind of considered a SkillBridge champion, to help you just make sure you're covering all the bases. That's the key. We have the same thing with the Army. The Army's done a tremendous job at creating these specialists to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. The big thing is a lot of times it's just making sure that we've communicated and we've shared adequately, and then we can overcome that.
And there was one more question in the chat about, is there any limit to the number of service members that you can have on staff at any particular point in time?
So about 200,000, because that's all that are coming out of the military right now. So no, there's no limit. I don't think anyone wants to hire 200,000. You can have multiple people at any given time going through this process. But remember, we're looking at the potential for employment. A good case in point, Humana, they have businesses all across the country. They are the #1 employer in Kentucky in the defense-related community. And Steve Bullard, I saw that you were on here. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they're #1. They can have multiple folks across the nation doing stuff. We're working with FEAM Aerospace to look at maybe making a hub for training of military people coming out of the military into aerospace industry up by CVG. So they do the training here, but end up placing them in someplace else to work as an aircraft mechanic. So a lot of different ways to do that. Kay, I see your comment there. Great. Can you share a little bit? Are you guys using SkillBridge, or how do you hire military?
Alice, there was also a question above that from Kayla, just whenever you put a pin in that, just FYI.
Hey, Dallas. No, I previously worked at GE, and I just, in the culture there, we had a lot of, active duty and veterans, just, kind of embedded in our culture throughout our leadership, throughout employees. And so I just kind of mentioned that when you mentioned Humana, It also made me think of GE. Yeah.
Right. So GE has predominantly used the USA Cares program, which used to be where opportunity knocks. It's a great way to do this. They are the same thing. It is a CSP SkillBridge opportunity, but they're more focused on the senior leader folks. So those that have had long careers with the military. We're also looking at how can we bring in some of those junior members. So would love to talk with you about how to expand that a little bit more into some of the junior folks. USA Cares is moving in that direction also. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has the Hire Our Heroes, very similar. The USO has Pathfinders, which does a similar process. So lots of ways to do it. Here in Kentucky, you don't have to have a program to do it. You can do it internally on your own. You don't need to necessarily engage with these third-party folks, but the third-party folks bring a different skill set to the table also. Let me go back to Kayla's question for just a moment. Is it hard for the military members to get into the program? No, it's not. It's about, again, communication. They need to talk with their leadership. So when I talk to a service member who says, hey, I'm interested in doing a SkillBridge CSP in Kentucky, the first thing I say is, have you talked to your leaders? Have you talked to your boss to see if they're going to support this? And sometimes I get that deer in the headlights look that I can hear over the phone and see over the phone. And they go back and they do that and they say, oh yes, my leadership is on board, because they understand not every, the military's changed. You don't go to the military for a 20-year career now. It's just like other places where with the current generation, and really it's kind of been this way all along. You go in, you do your 4 years, you get out. So they expect folks to get out. Some of them will go in the Guard and Reserve and be continued assets for the military that way, and engaged in their civilian population. So that's a great thing. So no, it is not hard. As a matter of fact, if you know of someone in your community who's in the military and they go, hey, I'm going to get out of the military, tell them, go talk to SkillBridge people and let's see what we can do to set up a job for you. And you can, the quickest I've ever seen it set up was about a month to set up a SkillBridge opportunity for someone. And that really depends on the employer and the service member doing all their paperwork. And it can be done in a month. So, and if you need help, this is part of what KVATS is, or VATS is trying to do. We want to have people who are champions for SkillBridge, myself right now, and part of our committee, to help the employers to understand how to set it up and do that translation for the service members. So we are a go-between. There are no costs associated with that. I do this pro bono because it's important. These folks have great opportunities. I came out of the military in 2015, and fortunately I had a plan already. But if I did not have a plan, it would have been a challenge. And I talked to, I had a meeting earlier with the guy today who was a lieutenant colonel, came out. He's still challenged on, how do I find these jobs? How do I get involved? How do I help them to understand my skill sets? I see that there's another message in here. Let's see, GE Appliances. Okay, very good. Other questions or comments? Or would you like to say something about it? Rusty, I see your hand up. What do you think?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity and you doing this. It's an amazing program, and education, getting the word out is key to the success. My question really revolves around if we've had any statistics about that. I know this is only a 2-year program, pretty new to Kentucky, but with our hiring our heroes in Syracuse universities that found that 44% to 80% will leave their job, their first job after the military or within the second year respectively. So
Sure.
Are there any transitional help back into civilian life through the DoD program, or is it still based on the nonprofits or supporting organizations around like KDVA and KCMA?
It is through the supporting organizations, and we're trying to build some data in that area, because I think that what we will find, the reason there's such a large shift for folks as they come out of the military and they roll into employment, it's because they're going into it cold. They've not had that internship experience to where they go, oh yes, this is something I want to do. And I did some work in Chicago in this very area. And we found that if an organization had a plan and the service member was exposed to it prior to leaving the service, there tends to be, and it's anecdotal, tends to be a greater likelihood that they will stay with the organization. Here in Kentucky, one of the SkillBridge things that we have the opportunity to do is with teachers. We can hire career and technical education teachers through SkillBridge into school systems. But right now, what happens is a service member is coming out of the military and somebody says, hey, be a school teacher. They go and they find out it's not where they want to be. And then they leave. So that's that whole transition. But with SkillBridge, they can come and internship alongside someone and see what it's like. They're not just thrown into the fire, but they get a chance to really experience that workplace and make that determination before they get out of the military. So I think it can really build a solid relationship with the employee and the employer by having these internships. I hope that answered your question. Great, good question. All questions are good questions. Others? What are your thoughts about this? Let me throw that out there. Is this something you think that could be viable in your workplace?
Dallas, this is Patrick Bryan. I'm the recruitment manager with App Harvest, and I can definitely see this being very beneficial as we continue to scale up with additional greenhouses throughout central and eastern Kentucky.
Great. You know, App Harvest, I've been a fan. I've been watching you guys from the sidelines since I got involved with the KWIB, and I agree, because there are a lot of aspects of military service that can bleed right in. Program management probably is the lead. Logistics. So yeah, the invitation is open. Give me a call. I will help you walk through this program.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think, Dallas, that's another comment that I think we could make for the group is that as a consultant communicator, the best mouthpiece for this program, I think having employers have access to service members and programs where they understand what does it mean to be military ready and military engaged and not just military friendly is also something that I think we should lift up in this conversation.
Oh, I agree. And I want to throw Zach Morgan out there under the bus. The chamber is doing some great work in this area. This same presentation was done or a similar presentation was done last year in May through the chamber, and would love to continue to do this, Zach, if we can. Zach was also part of KCMA at one point and is a military veteran. Love to see the chamber get more engaged in helping our employers to understand this program. Going back to your comment, so I'm an academic. I've taught for years, and that's where I kind of got this whole thing of the difference between being military friendly. Everybody's military friendly, okay? Everybody loves our veterans right now. We live in a time that the military is held in very high regard, and that's fantastic. So everybody's military friendly, but the military ready folks have made an informed decision to not only say, hey, we love you, thank you for your service, but they also say, thank you for your service, and here are places that we think veterans will work out great as employees. And moving from veteran ready to military engaged, we want to not only say, here's a job that you can have or that you would fit into, or that we've prepared for you, an internship opportunity. We want you to come now. We're going to invite you in. We're going to engage you to be our employee. And that's such an important thing. And really, I talk about that for the military community, but that is in every workforce opportunity. High school students have the greatest transition challenge ahead of them when they go from being a student to an employee. So it's really the same kind of concept. And I'd love to see us expand this idea of SkillBridge into how do we help our high school students to make that transition also. And I know there are a lot of things out there already. One thing that we're doing is trying to pair this with the Ignite Institute up by CVG, because if FEAM comes in, could they set up a training program for high school students and military members, increasing their opportunity for workforce? Okay, I did see another question come up. So let's see here. Is the biggest competition to this program the National Pathways program that offers current students and recent graduates paid internships? No, it's not really much competition. We're like-minded, and it's something that we can do together. One of the things that we would like to do with SkillBridge is encourage employers who do a SkillBridge internship for a service member that once they hire that individual, that means they've come off of active duty, they're now on your payroll, that you do a DOL registered apprenticeship, because that will allow the service members to engage their GI Bill for some funding, for training, for living expenses and such like that. And they can stay in there and continue on. We are still yet to do our first registered apprenticeship here, Jeannie, in Kentucky. Would love to have somebody do that, okay?
But we're working on it.
That's right, we are working on it. And that's because, the VAT is new. This whole idea, as Rusty mentioned, it's kind of new to us here in Kentucky. And we need to grow it up and to get better at this, okay? And there's just so many opportunities. It does bring back another question. If you do a registered apprenticeship with a displaced worker, there's also WIOA money that's available okay, that you can use because military members are considered displaced workers, and so are their spouses. So great opportunity here. Go ahead, Stephanie. I see you getting ready
I
to
was
say.
going to say that Matt had a comment in the chat that I just wanted folks to draw their attention to further support and attract active duty vets. Internships that are approved for VA benefits allow them to draw that housing stipend off their GI Bill as well. So just, taking a look at the full list of benefits that would be able to be accessed for the service member in this type of program.
All right, exactly. So let's talk about that for just a moment in healthcare. I'm working with some folks to look at starting up some apprenticeship models in healthcare. So as a service member comes out, if they want to become a nurse, they're going to have to go to school, get their nursing. We're working with KCTCS and the community college system and U of L and UK, to name a few schools, to see how we might be able to help them get into that nursing area by tapping into a registered DOL apprenticeship. They can use that GI Bill money to cover housing expenses, which is tax-free, which will help them as they're going through their school to get that knocked out. So we need to do that as often as we can. Those apprenticeships are invaluable. U of L has a MAPS program, which is modern apprenticeship pathways. And I'm sure that I'm not sure if Donetta Hockey is on here, but Jason, the co-chair to the VATS team, Jason has got great programs to help out in that area also. Jason, if you're on, feel free to jump in there and talk more about that. And yes, Gwen Hacker is a great resource. Gwen and I do a lot with the Keep Vets program and has been invaluable in helping me to understand how the GI Bill can be used.
Hey, Dallas, this is Bria Henson. I am from the Louisville Career Center, the Kentucky Career Center, Louisville region. I just wanted to point out, I know you were talking about military apprenticeships in healthcare. I know that several colleges, it's not an apprenticeship, but UK specifically launched about 7 years ago, a med vet to BSN option. And it's basically people who are corpsmen or similar FMF. I can put the link in the chat for you, where they have an accelerated BSN program. If you were a combat vet, or even not a combat vet, not combat vet, sorry, combat medic or medic in general. And I can send that to you. I know it's not exactly what you were looking for. I just wanted to point that out in case you were interested in that. And they're also looking. Go ahead.
Yes, so please throw that out there. Here's the challenge that I've seen. I've only been working in this ecosystem for about 2 years now. There are so many stovepipes of wonderful things going on out there, but we don't talk. Okay, we need to start talking so that we don't duplicate. We use a synergistic approach to achieving the greatest result possible, because it is about employees. We need to get more people in Kentucky. The more that we have in the way of knowledge workers, it increases our opportunities here in Kentucky. I am not a Kentuckian by birth. I'm a Kentuckian by choice. I love it here. My wife and I have decided to retire and stay here. And we have grandkids here. This is a wonderful place. I come from this frozen state a little north of Kentucky, and we have a bridge that connects. I'm glad to have escaped from there to come to Kentucky. Didn't know what kind of a gem this place was until I came out of Ohio. And we need to help other folks to see that. And we have great programs. It's just about getting the message out. And that's why I want to thank the KWIB for allowing me to do this spotlight on veteran employment and SkillBridge and CSP. And anytime you all have questions, you see my information on there. I will be.
There is the link in the chat as well for the next meeting, which I believe Sarah had said was in May. And there is also a link to the post-meeting packet from the meeting that was just held. We have just reconstituted the committee, so we are just starting to dig into the work. And if you are interested in participating, the KWIBS committees are fully staffed and run by volunteers. So please feel free to join us if you are interested in tracking this progress.
And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you because I'm really done unless
Okay.
others have more
Nope.
questions or comments. And
No, this is the most chatter we've had at the lunch hour partner spotlight. So you get the gold star for engaging the crowd on a rainy day lunch hour. But we really appreciate everybody joining us today. I don't remember who we have up for the May partner spotlight, but we will be sure everybody who's ever attended one gets the email blast notices of the next event. So thank you all and enjoy what's left of your Wednesday.
all right, thank you all.
Thank you, Dallas. We appreciate you.